Wait, you brought me here looking like that?
Marissa's laugh cracked across linen and crystal. A blind date with a single dad in work boots? This is hilarious. By the way, where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments below. She didn't lower her voice. She wanted the room to hear it. You don't belong in places like this, she added, eyes skimming his scuffed boots like they were a crime. He didn't flinch. He folded his napkin once, clean, exact, and set it down as if he'd just finished a task. She stood, pushed her chair back too hard, and walked away laughing, not even checking if he followed. He didn't, because he'd learned that chasing people never stops the bleeding. And because something in him was already listening for the moment this shining room would turn dangerous, the kind that makes power freeze and the overlooked man move. Caleb Rowan rose with the same calm he used on nights when alarms screamed. He didn't look rich. He looked like what he was now, hotel maintenance, a father who bought groceries with careful math. Still, his posture didn't apologize. His eyes tracked exits and counted bodies, noticing what others ignored. He stepped into the service corridor, and the air changed. Cooler, sharper with detergent and metal. The restaurant's warmth vanished behind the swinging door, along with the fragile thought that tonight might feel normal. For 1 hour, he'd wanted to be more than a shift schedule and a lunchbox. More than Lily's dad. His phone vibrated. A message from Mrs. Durrani, the neighbor who watched Lily when his shift ran late. Lily asked if you're okay. She said you sounded far away. The words tightened his throat. Lily never missed the tremor behind his voice. She was 8, missing a front tooth, and she still read him better than adults did. He typed back, "I'm okay. Tell her I'll be home after my rounds. Save the bedtime story." He pictured her waiting on the couch with her blanket bunched under her chin, pretending she wasn't fighting sleep. She'd ask about the hotel like it was a castle, and he'd dodge the hard parts, the overtime, the bills, the way strangers look through him. Lily didn't need to carry that yet. She needed a father who showed up, who kept promises, who didn't come home bitter. So he swallowed the shame, straightened his shoulders, and set his mind on one thing: get through the night and return to her always. A young server hurried through the corridor and almost collided with him. "Sorry, sir," the kid blurted, then corrected himself when he saw the badge. "Maintenance." "It's fine," Caleb said. The server exhaled and moved on. Down here, people didn't laugh at work boots. Down here, they knew what kept the lights on. Caleb passed the staff lockers and the laminated checklists, evacuation routes, fire protocols, mechanical access codes. Upstairs was velvet and glass. Down here was the truth. Pipes, wires, doors that could seal, doors that could fail. He paused beside an access panel that sat slightly crooked. Most guests would never see it. Most managers wouldn't know it existed. Caleb crouched, tested the latch, and reseated it with a quiet twist. A soft click answered him, like the building exhaling. In the maintenance office, his tool bag waited under a desk scarred by years of use. He checked his flashlight and radio, then slipped the strap over his shoulder. Buried in an inner pocket was a dull brass coin, edges smoothed by handling. No logo anyone would recognize. Just wait. Above, music swelled. Tonight's charity gala, full of donors and cameras and smiles bright enough to blind. The building would be packed with important faces, and that meant the building had to behave. Caleb had been assigned extra rounds, extra checks, extra be available. He headed for the stairwell, boots muted on the rubber flooring. At the door, he paused, listening. Through concrete and steel, he caught a faint irregular sound, like a lock mechanism cycling twice when it should have cycled once. Subtle, easy to miss. Another stutter, another click. Caleb placed his palm on the metal and felt a thin vibration running through the frame. He glanced at the emergency diagram posted beside the handle, tracing routes and choke points with his eyes. Hallways that funneled crowds, exits that could become traps. Somewhere above, Marissa was still laughing, convinced she'd escaped an embarrassment. Somewhere above, Powerful people drank beneath chandeliers, believing money made them safe. Caleb turned the handle and stepped into the stairwell, moving upward toward the lights, toward the gala, toward whatever that stuttering mechanism was trying to become. And for the first time all night, his pulse wasn't heavy with humiliation. It was sharp with purpose. He climbed until the music softened and the walls thinned, the stairwell narrowing like a throat. The gala's pulse bled through the concrete. Laughter, clinking glass, a bass note that thudded too regularly to be ignored. He slowed, hand hovering near the rail, listening for the stutter again. It came back, faint but wrong, a double beat where there should have been one. The radio on his shoulder crackled. "Maintenance, we've got a sensor glitch on 3, a supervisor said, bored. "Probably humidity." "Copy," he replied, voice even. He didn't argue. Arguing wasted time. He stepped onto the landing and pressed his palm to the door. The vibration hummed, impatient. Upstairs, the atrium glowed. Chandeliers scattered light across tuxedos and gowns, across a crowd that believed safety was a guarantee, not a practice. He skirted the edge, staying close to columns and service doors, where staff moved like shadows. A catering cart squealed past, wheels crying for grease. He bent, fixed one axle with a twist and a tap, and the noise died. The server mouthed thanks and hurried on. The building talked if you listened. Tonight it was clearing its throat. He reached a security panel tucked behind a velvet drape and ran a quick check. Green lights, all smiling lies. He toggled a manual diagnostic, watching the timing lag by a hair. Someone had threaded a delay through the system, clever enough to pass a glance, sloppy enough to leave a fingerprint if you knew where to look. His phone buzzed again. A photo this time. Lily on the couch, blanket to her chin, eyes stubbornly open. Mrs. Durrani's message followed. She says, "You'll be home before the last page." He typed back with his thumb. "I will. Tell her to mark it." He slid the phone away and scanned the exits. Too many people. Too much silk. If the locks cycled wrong, panic would do the rest. He moved, not running, just fast enough to stay ahead of the idea that something was off. A voice cut across the hum. "Hey, maintenance." Marissa stood near the bar, a glass lifted, her smile sharpened by the crowd around her. "Did you get lost?" He met her eyes without heat. "Working." She laughed again, softer this time, the sound trying to blend. "Figures." He turned before the laugh could land. Some nights were about swallowing words. Some were about preventing them from becoming screams. Near the east doors, a security guard frowned at a tablet. "These logs don't match," the guard muttered. "Because they're not supposed to," he said gently, and reached for the screen. The guard hesitated, then handed it over. He traced the timestamps, nodding once. Someone spliced a delay into the release cycle. When the all-clear hits, these doors lag. That bad? It could be. The guard swallowed. "Who do I call?" "Not yet," he said. "First we stop the second trigger." He ducked through a service hatch and into a corridor that smelled of ozone and old paint. The hum grew louder here, a wire singing under strain. He found the junction box and opened it, fingers steady, eyes remembering patterns learned long before hotels and uniforms. He rerouted the feed, isolating the delay, then set a temporary bypass. The hum softened, not gone. Waiting. "Maintenance?" The radio crackled again. Commissioner Hale just arrived. Wants a status. That tightened something in his chest. Power had entered the room. "Tell him systems are stable," he said, "for now." He closed the box and leaned back against the wall, breathing once, deep. He pictured Lily's bookmark, the way she lined it up exactly with the margin. He pictured her asking why people were loud tonight. He pictured getting home with the night intact. A ripple moved through the atrium. Phones raised, murmurs rising. The commissioner's presence drew attention like gravity. He stayed where power never looked, watching reflections in polished brass. The stutter came again, farther this time, testing the bypass. He keyed the radio. I need access to the archive closet off the west mezzanine. Why? Because someone wants us to think this is an accident. A pause. Approved. He moved, skirting the edge, slipping past a cluster of donors mid-laugh. As he passed, he caught Marissa's gaze again. It lingered, uncertain now, the laughter gone. He didn't slow. Before he reached the mezzanine, the lights flickered. A collective intake of breath swept the room. Subscribe with the bell on, a voice from a nearby camera crew joked to their audience, because something's about to happen. He reached the closet and pulled the door shut behind him, darkness pressing close. He flipped on his flashlight and smiled once. Thin. Something was about to happen, and this time he was early. The closet smelled like dust and warm plastic, a narrow space that hummed with stored memory. Racks of archived drives lined the wall, each labeled with dates and dull barcodes that meant nothing to donors. And everything to a building. He knelt, flashlight pinned under his chin, and slid out a tray. The hum outside deepened, a distant animal testing its leash. He pulled logs, scanning fast. Entry points. Override attempts. There, an access signature that didn't belong to any vendor or staff badge. It was masked well, nested inside routine checks, but the timing gave it away. Too precise, too patient. His radio clicked softly. Maintenance, the supervisor said, tension creeping in. Commissioner Hale wants eyes on everything. Then give him ears, he replied. Tell him to listen for the delay. Silence. Then, what delay? He slid the drive back and stood, joints popping quietly. The one that turns exits into suggestions. He opened the door and stepped out onto the mezzanine. Below, the atrium churned with light and nerves. The commissioner stood near the center, tall, silver-haired authority wrapped tight around his shoulders. Cameras loved him. He spoke with clipped certainty to a ring of aides, and the crowd leaned in, believing that proximity equaled protection. He watched from above, unseen, as a junior tech tried to explain the glitch. The commissioner waved it off with a practiced smile. Money fixes problems, his posture said. Order fixes people. The hum shifted again. The bypass wouldn't hold forever. He descended the stairs and slipped into the labor corridor that paralleled the atrium, concrete echoing under his boots. A catering assistant hurried past, eyes wide. Is it true? She whispered. They say the doors might. Keep moving, he said gently, and tell your team to stage by the service exits. Quietly, she nodded and ran. At the west doors, a new guard stood watch, jaw tight. Sir, maintenance. We're supposed to wait for command. He met the guard's eyes. Command is busy being important. We need to be ready. The guard hesitated, then nodded. He cracked the door to the service stairwell, letting cool air spill in. The hum dipped, confused. Up in the atrium, a murmur rose. The commissioner lifted a hand, calling for calm. His voice carried authority, but authority didn't reroute wires. His phone buzzed again. A short video this time, Lily marking her place with care, glancing at the door, then at the clock. Mrs. Durrani's caption followed. She says hurry, but not the bad kind. He swallowed and slid the phone away. A sharp crackle burst from the radio. We've got a false all-clear signal queued, the supervisor said, finally alarmed. It's about to broadcast. Block it, he said. We can't. It's. Then we intercept it. He moved fast now, not running but not walking either, threading through a service tunnel that cut beneath the atrium. The walls narrowed, pipes sweating overhead. He reached the secondary control node and pried it open, hands moving on instinct. He pulled the brass coin from his pocket and slotted it into a recessed manual port, the metal fitting like it remembered him. The system paused. The hum dropped to a whisper. He rerouted the signal, diverting the all-clear into a sandbox loop, then layered in a delay that would hold without triggering alarms. Sweat traced his spine, cool and focused. Above, the commissioner's voice faltered as the expected chime didn't sound. Cameras swung. The crowd shifted, uneasy. He stepped out of the tunnel and into the atrium's shadow. A security officer caught his sleeve. "You can't be here." "Yes, I can," he said, and the officer felt it. Something steady, something earned, and let go. The commissioner turned, eyes narrowing. For a moment, recognition flickered and died, replaced by irritation. Who authorized this? Someone who didn't want a stampede, he replied. A murmur rippled. Phones rose higher. Marissa stood near the bar, glass untouched now, her gaze fixed on him. The laughter was gone. In its place, something like confusion took root. The hum returned, testing again, stronger this time. He felt it through the soles of his boots. "Commissioner," he said, louder now. "There's a second trigger. When it hits, the east doors lag. We move people west, in waves now." "You don't give orders here," the commissioner snapped. He didn't flinch. "I give outcomes." The lights flickered again, longer this time. A gasp tore through the crowd. The commissioner hesitated. Cameras loved hesitation less than mistakes. "Do it," the commissioner said, tight. Slowly. He nodded once and lifted his radio. "Service teams, west exits. Quiet, count them." The building exhaled as people began to move, confused but guided. The hum strained, then eased, thwarted again. He watched the flow, adjusting with small gestures, a hand raised here, a nod there. The crowd followed without knowing why. From the balcony, the commissioner studied him, something unsettled breaking through the polish. He leaned to an aide and whispered. The aide's eyes widened, then flicked back to the man in work boots. The hum changed pitch. He felt it in his bones. "Here it comes," he said softly and braced. The pitch sharpened, a thin scream threading through the air, and he shifted his stance without thinking. Knees loose. Weight balanced. The east doors shuddered once, twice, then froze halfway through a cycle. A ripple of panic surged toward them like a wave meeting glass. "Hold," he said into the radio, voice low but carrying. "Not yet." People pressed forward, confusion tipping toward fear. Somewhere a woman cried out sharp and sudden. He lifted his hand, palm open, the same gesture he used when Lily teetered at the edge of a pool. "Stop. Breathe. Trust me." The security officer nearest him mirrored the gesture without realizing it. The wave slowed. On the balcony, the commissioner leaned forward, jaw clenched. An aide whispered urgently, pointing at the stalled doors. Cameras caught the moment authority realized it was no longer steering. He moved toward the east control panel, skirting the crowd, staying in the seams where staff flowed. The hum vibrated through the metal housing, angry now. He popped the panel and traced the wiring, eyes narrowing. Someone had built redundancy into the sabotage, smart enough to anticipate a bypass, arrogant enough to assume no one would read the bones of the system. "Maintenance. We're losing telemetry," the supervisor said, breathless. "If this cascades—" "It won't," he said, and meant it. "Not if we bleed it off." He pulled the brass coin again, feeling its weight, and wedged it into a secondary slot, grounding the feedback loop. Sparks kissed the edge and died. The hum wavered, confused. Behind him, footsteps approached. "Step away from that," the commissioner said, voice sharp. "You're risking your donors?" He finished quietly, not turning. "Or your exits," the commissioner bristled. "You don't know what you're doing." He finally looked back, meeting the older man's eyes. There it was. The flicker again. Recognition trying to surface. "I know this building," he said. "And I know crowds. Let me work." A beat. Cameras hummed. The commissioner swallowed and nodded once. 5 minutes. He turned back to the panel, fingers flying. He rerouted power to the west corridor, opening space, then flagged the east doors as manual only. The locks released with a heavy clunk. The crowd gasped as the doors slid fully open. "West exits only," he said into the radio. Slow and steady. People moved. Relief rippled. The wave broke harmlessly, spilling into safety. Marissa watched from the edge, her face pale now, eyes tracking his hands, the calm that never cracked. The laughter from earlier felt like it belonged to someone else. A guard jogged up, awe bleeding into his voice. "Sir, the logs. You were right. Someone piggybacked the system. We're tracing it." "Good," he said. "Follow the patients." The hum softened, receding, but he didn't relax. Sabotage like this wanted an audience. It wanted a finale. His phone buzzed again. He ignored it, then thought better and glanced. A single text from Mrs. Durrani. "She's still awake. She says heroes come home." His chest tightened. He locked the phone and focused. "Commissioner," he said, stepping into the open now, letting the camera see him. "There's one more piece. A false all clear will try again. Timed to your announcement. If it hits, people surge back. We can't let that happen." The commissioner stared at him, the room waiting. "How do we stop it?" "We don't," he said. "We expose it." The commissioner hesitated. Authority didn't like exposure. But the room was watching, and the west exits were clear because of the man in front of him. "Do it," the commissioner said. He nodded and moved toward the central console, the one meant for show, polished, visible, useless without someone willing to dirty it. He patched the sandbox loop into the main display, routing the fake signal where everyone could see it queue up, blinking and false. A murmur rolled through the atrium as the words, "False all clear," flashed undeniable. Phones lifted higher. The cameras drank it in. The signal fired and died on the screen, harmless. A cheer broke, ragged and relieved. The building settled, the hum finally gone. The commissioner let out a long breath and did something small but telling. He straightened, then turned fully toward the man in work boots. "Who are you?" He thought of Lily, of the bookmark, of the promise. "Someone who keeps things from breaking," he said. The commissioner studied him, and this time the recognition stuck. Memory aligned with posture, with voice, with the way he'd taken control without noise. The commissioner's hand trembled as it rose, not to shake, but to salute. The room went silent. Marissa's breath caught, and in that silence, something old and right clicked back into place. The commissioner's hand stayed raised, fingers sharp, unmistakable. Not a wave, not applause, a salute. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The atrium, so loud minutes ago, felt hollowed out, like the air itself was holding still to see what would happen next. Cameras zoomed in. Screens caught the angle of his arm, the set of his jaw, the way respect replaced command. He lowered his hand slowly. "I know that stance," the commissioner said, voice carrying now without effort. "I've seen it before. Years ago. Different building. Worse night." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Staff leaned forward. Donors stopped pretending to check their phones. He didn't answer right away. He closed the central console, careful, like tucking in a loose wire, then stepped back. "Tonight isn't about me," he said. "We still have work." The commissioner nodded once, a concession heavy with meaning. Then lead. That single word shifted the room. Orders flowed through him now, not around him. Security fell into rhythm. Staff mirrored his signals. The west exits stayed open. The east doors remained manual, watched, controlled. A senior aide approached the commissioner, whispering urgently. "Sir," the trace came back. "The access signature. It belongs to a contractor flagged last year. He timed this for your speech." The commissioner's mouth tightened. "Contain him." "It's already done," he said. "Your team's moving." The aide looked at him, really looked, and something like awe crossed his face. "Yes, sir," he said, and meant him. Marissa stood frozen near the bar, her world tilting. She watched donors glance at her, then at him, trying to reconcile laughter with the man who'd just been saluted by the city's top authority. Her cheeks flushed, not with embarrassment now, but with a dawning understanding she didn't like. He felt eyes on him and turned. Their gazes met. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Whatever apology she was assembling wasn't ready yet. His phone vibrated insistently. He finally checked it. A voice message. Lily's voice, soft but fierce. "Dad, I'm still awake. I know you said heroes come home, but you don't have to be one. Just come home." His throat burned. He tucked the phone away and lifted the radio. "Final sweep," he said. "Then we stand down." As teams moved, the commissioner stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You saved lives tonight." "So did they," he said, nodding toward staff and guards. "I just pointed." The commissioner studied him, then nodded. "After this, I'd like to talk. After I get home," he replied. A corner of the commissioner's mouth twitched. "Fair." The atrium settled into an exhausted calm. Guests filtered out under guidance, gratitude messy and sincere. A few stopped to thank him, unsure what to call him. He accepted it all with the same quiet eyes already elsewhere. When the last alarm cleared and the screens went dark, applause broke out, not polished, not staged. It came from staff first, then spread. Donors clapping because everyone else was. He didn't bow. He didn't wave. He just nodded once and turned toward the service corridor. Behind him, the commissioner spoke to the cameras. "Tonight reminded us that safety doesn't come from titles. It comes from people who know the work." The words followed him down concrete stairs, but he let them go. In the corridor, the hum was gone. Only footsteps and breathing remained. He leaned against the wall for a moment, the night finally catching up to him. His hands shook, just a little. He pressed them flat until they stilled. A guard approached, hesitant. "Sir, maintenance. I mean," he smiled faintly. "It's fine." The guard nodded, grinning. "Whatever you are, thanks." He picked up his tool bag and headed for the exit. The brass coin slipped from his pocket and clinked on the floor. He crouched, picked it up, thumb brushing the worn edge, then pocketed it again. Outside, rain had started, light and clean. He pulled his jacket tighter and walked toward the bus stop, boots splashing softly. The city looked the same, streetlights, puddles, tired buildings, but something in him felt aligned, like a joint set back into place. At the stop, his phone rang. Mrs. Durrani. He answered on the second ring. "She fell asleep," she whispered. "But she made me promise to tell you she marked the page." He closed his eyes, smiling. "Thank you. I'm almost there." As he boarded the bus, his reflection stared back from the glass. Work boots, tired eyes, a man the city had finally seen. Not because he asked, because the moment demanded him. If you're still here, subscribe with the bell on, because the truth has a way of surfacing when pressure hits. The bus pulled away, carrying him home, while behind him the hotel lights dimmed, and a different story about power began to circulate. The bus hissed as it pulled away, rain streaking the windows into long silver lines. He sat near the back, tool bag at his feet, shoulders finally dropping as the city rocked him forward. The adrenaline ebbed, leaving a deep, honest tiredness that settled into his bones. For the first time all night, the building wasn't calling him anymore. At the next stop, a pair of hotel staff climbed aboard, whispering excitedly. One glanced at him, eyes widening, then looked away like she'd spotted a secret. He stared out at the dark, letting the city slide past. Power never looked here. That was fine. His phone buzzed again. A message this time, unsentimental and brief. "Commissioner Hale, thank you. We should talk. Tomorrow, if you're willing." He didn't answer right away. The bus turned, tires sighing over wet asphalt. He thought of Lily asleep on the couch, the bookmark aligned just so. He thought of the salute, how it hadn't felt like victory so much as correction. He typed back, "Tomorrow's fine. After school pickup." The reply came almost instantly. Of course. The bus stop near his block glowed under a flickering streetlight. He stepped off, rain tapping his jacket, and walked the familiar route past the closed bakery and the mural someone kept repainting no matter how often it peeled. Home smelled like cumin and old books. Mrs. Durrani met him at the door with a relieved smile and a finger to her lips. "She's out," she whispered. "Dreaming, I think." He thanked her, pressed a few bills into her hand despite her protest, and padded into the living room. Lily slept curled under her blanket, hair stuck to her cheek. He knelt, brushed it back, and felt the knot in his chest loosen. In the kitchen, he set the tool bag down and finally let himself sit. His hands shook again, harder this time. He breathed through it, counting the way he used to, 4 in, 6 out. The shaking passed. Morning came soft and gray. He walked Lily to school, holding her hand through puddles. She talked about the story, about a dragon that wasn't scary once you knew its name. At the gate, she stopped and looked up at him. "Did you fix it?" He smiled. "I did my part." She nodded, satisfied, and ran to her friends. At work, the hotel felt different. Not quieter, just aware. Staff nodded as he passed. A guard grinned and said, "Morning, boss," then flushed and corrected himself. He waved it off. He checked panels, signed logs, listened. The building behaved. By noon, the commissioner arrived without cameras. They sat in a small conference room that smelled like coffee and toner. The commissioner didn't waste time. "I was wrong," he said. "About you. About what matters." He listened, hands folded, eyes steady. Apologies meant less than changes. "I'd like you to consult," the commissioner continued. "Training. Systems. Quietly. On your terms." He considered it. Consulting meant hours. Hours meant Lily. "Limited," he said. "And it doesn't change my job." The commissioner nodded. Understood. When he left, the city felt slightly more aligned, not fixed. Better aimed. That evening, Marissa appeared at the maintenance office door, posture uncertain. She didn't step in. "I owe you an apology," she said, "for laughing, for assuming." He wiped his hands and met her gaze. "Apologies are actions," he said gently. "Do better." She nodded, eyes shining, and left. Weeks passed. The story rippled outward. Not his name. Never that. Just a recalibration. Staff trained. Exits tested. Power learned to listen. He kept his rounds and his promises. He read the dragon story twice. One night, Lily asked about the coin. He turned it over in his palm, feeling its weight. "It reminds me who I am when things get loud," he said. She traced the edge with her finger. "Can I keep it someday?" "Someday," he said. Outside, rain began again, light and clean. He stood at the window with his daughter and watched the city breathe, knowing that when the hum returned, as it always did, he'd be ready, right where power never looked. The rain eased into a whisper by morning, leaving the city rinsed and honest. He woke before the alarm, as he usually did, listening to the pipes settle and the distant grind of traffic waking up. Lily slept on, one arm flung across her pillow, the dragon book face down, beside her. He made breakfast quietly, the smell of toast filling the small kitchen, grounding him in the ordinary. At work, the hotel's rhythm had shifted again. Not dramatically. No banners, no speeches. But in the way people paused to double-check, in the way doors were tested twice instead of once. He moved through the service corridors with his clipboard tucked under his arm, nodding to familiar faces. A new guard followed his checklist exactly, eyes serious. That mattered more than applause ever could. Mid-morning, an incident report landed on his desk. Minor. A sensor hiccup on 7. He reviewed the data, fingers tracing patterns, and felt a tug of unease. The glitch looked harmless, but it rhymed with the sabotage. Too clean, too patient. He flagged it and walked it himself, boots echoing softly. On 7, a window cleaner balanced on a platform, humming. He watched the sway, the timing, the way the platform responded to a gust. "Take 5, he said. Winds shifting." The cleaner nodded and stepped back just as a stronger gust snapped through, rocking the platform. No harm done. Prevention was a quiet kind of victory. By noon, the commissioner's office called again. Not for him, but for data. He sent it. No commentary. The city didn't need his voice. It needed his habits. In the afternoon, he picked Lily up from school. She ran to him with a grin and a paper crown. "We learned about helpers," she announced. "People who fix things." He crouched to her level. "Did you learn how?" she thought, serious. "You pay attention." At home, homework sprawled across the table. He checked math, corrected gently, praised effort. The coin sat on the counter, catching light. Lily eyed it, then the door, then him. "Are you going back out tonight?" "Just a short round," he said. "Then I'm yours." At the hotel, a training session filled a small room. Staff sat in folding chairs, coffee cups steaming. He didn't lecture. He asked questions. Where would you go? What would you listen for? Hands rose, tentative, then confident. Knowledge spread sideways, not down. Afterward, a young supervisor lingered. "They're saying you should be in charge," he said, half joking, half hoping. He smiled faintly. "I am. Of my part." The city tested that answer a week later. It began with a call just after dusk. Another building, another neighborhood, a municipal hall hosting a public forum, locked doors. Conflicting signals, panic brewing. The commissioner's voice came through the line, stripped of polish. "We could use your eyes." He looked at Lily, shoes kicked off, coloring at the table. He knelt. "I need to help some people," he said. "Mrs. Durrani's on her way." Lily nodded, solemn. "Be careful." He arrived at the hall to flashing lights and raised voices. Authority pressed in from all sides, each badge shouting a different order. He slipped past them into the service space, listening. The hum was familiar now. A cousin, not a stranger. He found the fault quickly. Old wiring. New software. A mismatch no budget meeting would catch. He fixed it with a borrowed tool and a steady hand. Doors opened. Air moved. People breathed. Cameras caught none of it. That was fine. Outside, the commissioner clapped him on the shoulder. "You should take the role," he said. "Make this official." He shook his head. "Fix the system," he said. "Teach the people. I'll stay where I'm useful." The commissioner studied him, then nodded. "You already changed it," he said quietly. On the bus home, he watched lights pass and felt the city's pulse align and misalign, a living thing that needed tending. At his stop, rain began again. A familiar friend. He walked the last block with purpose, knowing Lily would ask if he fixed it. He unlocked the door to warmth and chatter. Lily looked up, eyes bright. "Did you pay attention?" He smiled, hanging his jacket. "Always." As he tucked her in later, the dragon book opened at the marked page. He realized something had settled. Not an ending, but a balance. The city would keep testing. Power would keep forgetting. And he would keep listening right where he was, ready when the hum returned. The city didn't announce its next test. It never did. It crept in through routine, emails flagged low priority, meetings scheduled too tight, budgets trimmed where no one important walked. He felt it building in the gaps, the way you feel weather in your knees before the forecast catches up. At the hotel, he finished a round and paused at the service elevator, listening. The hum wasn't loud yet. It was thoughtful, planning. In the maintenance office, he spread schematics across the desk and began mapping dependencies with a pencil worn to a nub. Doors talked to cameras. Cameras talked to servers. Servers talked to people who assumed someone else was watching. He circled the weakest links and wrote names beside them. Not to blame, but to train. A knock came, soft. The young supervisor leaned in. "We're rolling out the new access update tonight." He looked up. Not during occupancy. They wanted live before the weekend. He tapped the pencil twice. "Then we stage it in shadow." Mirror first. No switches without a body present. The supervisor nodded, relief loosening his shoulders. I'll tell them. Tell them I'll take the call, he added. The call came 15 minutes later, a consultant's voice, smooth and impatient. Timelines, metrics, confidence. He listened without interrupting, then asked 3 questions that cut through the polish. The voice slowed. Adjustments were made. A rollout was postponed. The city breathed easier, though it didn't know why. That afternoon, Lily sat at the kitchen table building a city from blocks. Bridges arcing, towers rising, tiny figures crossing safely. He watched her test each bridge with a fingertip before adding more weight. "You're checking," he said. She nodded. "If it wobbles, you fix it." He smiled and helped her reinforce a span. The bridge held. At dusk, the commissioner's office sent over an invite. Not a meeting, an observation. A walkthrough of the municipal hub downtown. Cameras would be present this time. He considered it, then agreed on one condition: no speeches. No announcements. Understood, came the reply. The hub buzzed with activity when he arrived. New systems gleamed. Old bones creaked underneath. He moved where power didn't look, behind counters, beneath stairs, testing doors, tracing cables, listening for the hum. It was there, faint, threaded through a contractor's shortcut. He flagged it, corrected it, and left a note that taught instead of scolded. A camera operator followed him, curious. "People want to know how you do it," the operator said. He shrugged. "You pay attention." The clip aired later that night. Not his name, just his hands, steady, rerouting a line while a caption read, "Quiet fixes, save loud lives." If you're watching this unfold and you believe unnoticed work matters, subscribe with the bell on, because the next test doesn't come with a warning. The city obliged the promise sooner than expected. A storm rolled in fast, the kind that turned streets into mirrors and impatience into accidents. Power flickered across neighborhoods. The hub's alerts lit up. He was already moving, jacket on, boots laced. Lily's bookmark slid into place before he kissed her forehead. At the hub, alarms layered over rain. Authority clustered at the front desk. Voices overlapping. He cut through to the service core and found the issue: a flood sensor tied to a failsafe that would seal doors to protect assets, not people. The setting had never been questioned. He changed it. Water pooled at the threshold, but doors stayed open. People moved out calmly, guided by staff he'd trained. The storm battered the city and lost interest. Afterward, an aide approached with a tablet. "They're asking who approved the change." He wiped rain from his face. "Tell them it was necessary." "Your name." He shook his head. "Tell them the setting was wrong." The aide nodded, understanding. Near midnight, the commissioner found him by the loading dock. "You're preparing something," the commissioner said. "I'm preparing everyone," he replied, "so I don't have to be there." The commissioner studied him, then smiled, tired but genuine. "You're winning without standing on a stage." He thought of Lily's bridge, of the hum softening as systems learned to behave. That's the point. On the bus home, the city glowed wet and alive. Messages pinged. Staff reporting checks completed. A guard thanking him for the checklist. A neighbor saying Lily fell asleep smiling. He answered what mattered. At home, Lily stirred as he covered her with the blanket. "Did it wobble?" she murmured. "A little," he said. "Did you fix it?" He kissed her hair. "We did." Outside, the rain eased. The hum receded, not gone, but patient. He stood at the window and mapped the next preparation in his head, knowing the final test would want witnesses, would want noise. When it came, he would be ready, not to be seen, but to make sure everyone else was. The storm left behind a city scrubbed raw, gutters still whispering as morning arrived. He woke with the sense of something unfinished, the kind that lived under the ribs and didn't go away with coffee. Lily ate cereal at the counter, humming, her city of blocks still standing from the night before. "School today," she said around a spoonful. "We're practicing the assembly." Lots of people, he said. Yeah. She glanced up. You don't like lots of people, he smiled. I like when they're safe. At the hotel, the preparation took on a different quality. Not frantic. Focused. Teams moved with intention. Checklists lived in hands instead of binders. And questions were asked early. He walked the routes again, eyes tracing flows, mind anticipating where fear would try to gather. The hum was there, faint and watchful, like it knew it would get one more chance. By noon, word arrived of the evening's event. A joint gala, charity and policy, donors and city officials packed into the atrium that had already proven it could turn. Cameras were confirmed. Schedules tightened. The commissioner sent a single line. "Tonight will be loud," he replied. "Then we keep it quiet underneath." He met with staff in the service corridor, voices low. No speeches, just assignments. Who watched which door? Who counted heads? Who listened for the wrong sound? He didn't say why. He didn't need to. Trust had settled in. Marissa hovered at the edge, then stepped forward. "I can help," she said, carefully. He considered her, then nodded once. "You can move messages," he said. "Calm ones." She swallowed and nodded, grateful for the work. As evening fell, the atrium filled again with light and silk. He took his place where power never looked, behind a column near the west exits, radio snug against his shoulder, the brass coin warm in his pocket. The hum sharpened, almost pleased. The commissioner took the stage, voice steady, words about resilience and partnership floating above the crowd. Applause rolled, cameras drank it in. He watched the exits, the faces, the hands clutching glasses. He felt the building tense. A subtle change rippled through the system, a cued signal that shouldn't exist. He keyed the radio. "Stand by." The hum surged, then split, 2 notes at once. The sabotage wanted spectacle. He moved, cutting through the service door and down the narrow corridor, fingers flying across a panel. The cued signal blinked red on his handheld. He smiled faintly. It was the same trick, dressed up. Arrogance always reused what had worked. "Not tonight," he murmured. He didn't kill it. He framed it. He routed the false all clear to the central display again, but this time he layered the logs beside it, timestamps, access points, the quiet patience of proof. He synced the feed to the house screens, waiting for the right moment. Back in the atrium, the commissioner reached the crescendo of his speech. He felt it, the crowd leaning forward, breath held. He pressed send. False all clear flashed. Then the logs cascaded, clean and undeniable. A collective intake of breath swept the room. Phones lifted, murmurs sharpened into understanding. The cued signal fired and died in full view. The commissioner stopped mid-sentence. He turned slowly, eyes tracking the screens, then found him in the shadow. The pause stretched, powerful and unplanned. The commissioner lowered the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice carrying without amplification. "This is what it looks like when money fails and preparation doesn't." Applause broke, messy and real. Staff moved as trained, guiding guests with calm hands. No surge, no panic. The building exhaled. He stayed where he was, watching the flow, adjusting with a nod here, a raised palm there. Marissa caught his eye from across the room and mouthed, "Thank you." He inclined his head and returned to the work. When the last guest cleared and the lights softened, the commissioner approached. "No cameras this time. You planned that," he said. "I planned for people," he replied. The commissioner nodded, something like humility settling in. "You exposed it without hurting anyone." That was the goal. Outside, the city breathed again. He took the bus home, rain threatening but holding. At his stop, he walked the last block, the hum finally quiet. Satisfied. At home, Lily waited with her backpack by the door. "The assembly went fine," she said. "No wobble." He smiled, hanging his jacket. "Good work." As he tucked her in later, she pressed the coin into his hand. "For luck," she whispered. He closed his fingers around it. feeling the weight of preparation and the relief of witnesses who'd learned to listen. The city would talk about tonight. It would argue about power and credit. He would be ready for the next hum, wherever it started. Morning came with a different texture. Not relief. Awareness. The city hadn't relaxed after the gala. It had leaned forward, curious now, paying attention in a way it rarely did. News clips played in cafes and lobbies, looping the moment the screens flashed and the cued signal died. Commentators argued about accountability. Experts debated systems. Nobody said his name. That was fine. At the hotel, an internal review began. Clipboards, suits, consultants with sharp smiles. They toured prestige zones first, nodding at chandeliers and art, then drifted reluctantly into labor corridors where pipes sang and doors told the truth. He walked with them, answering when asked, silent when not. One consultant gestured at a control panel. Why wasn't this flagged earlier? Because nobody asked it the right questions, he said. The consultant frowned, scribbled, moved on. By midday, the commissioner called him to the atrium. Empty now, echoing. Sunlight cut clean lines across the floor. We're implementing your protocols citywide, the commissioner said. Training, redundancies, public reporting. He listened, weighing the words. Then, make it boring, he said. If it's exciting, something's wrong. The commissioner smiled, rueful. You don't want a title. I want a system that works without me. That afternoon, a ripple moved through the city again. This time, not a threat, but a test. A scheduled drill at the municipal hub. Announced and watched. Cameras were invited. Skeptics sharpened knives. He stood in the service corps, hands in his pockets, the coin warm against his palm. The drill began. Signals cued, doors cycled. People moved, calm, guided, prepared. A planted fault triggered and was caught before it could breathe. Applause echoed, thin, but real. A reporter cornered him near the loading dock. Why stay in maintenance, she asked, after everything? He met her gaze. Because that's where the problems start. The clip aired that evening, shared and reshared. Quiet fixes save loud lives. The caption read again. Lily watched it once, then turned off the TV. They got it, she said. Some of it, he replied. Days passed. The hum stayed low. Systems learned. People practiced. Power adjusted its posture, if not its nature. Then a call came from a different corner of the city. A school hosting a festival. Temporary stages. Borrowed generators. A child, stuck in an elevator during a test run. Panic rising fast. He arrived as authority argued. He slipped past into the shaft control, listening. The fault was simple, human. A connector seated wrong. He fixed it in seconds. The doors opened. A small girl ran into her mother's arms. Cameras caught the hug, not him. On the way home, he stopped at the bakery that reopened after the storm. He bought a loaf, still warm, and walked the last blocks thinking about Lily's assembly, the drill, the girl in the elevator. Patterns held. At home, Lily waited with a new bookmark she'd made. Cardboard, marker ink bleeding through. It showed a bridge with people crossing safely. For your book, she said. He swallowed. Thank you. As night settled, he sat by the window. City lights steady, no flicker. The victory wasn't a single moment anymore. It was maintenance. Daily. Unglamorous. Shared. Public exposure had done its work. Poetic justice had landed without cruelty. Somewhere, power was learning to listen. Somewhere, a system held because someone had asked the right questions early. He closed the book at the marked page and turned off the light, knowing the story wasn't over. But it was finally moving the right way. The city's attention settled into a hum of its own. Low, constant, watchful. Not panic, not applause. Awareness. He felt it in the way emails were phrased now, in the questions people asked before touching switches, in the pauses that replaced assumptions. The systems were learning, but people were learning faster. At the hotel, the consultants wrapped up their review. Recommendations were printed, bound, scheduled. He signed off on what mattered and ignored the rest. When they left, the building sighed back into its familiar rhythm. Pipes whispered. Doors waited. The truth stayed close. Late afternoon brought a message from the commissioner. Atrium. One last thing. He finished a round and headed there, boots soft against polished stone. The space was empty except for a small cluster near the center. Staff, a few city officials, no cameras. Sunlight spilled through the glass ceiling, catching dust motes in a gentle drift. The commissioner stood with hands clasped, posture less rigid than it used to be. Marissa stood off to one side, eyes down, fingers worrying the stem of an empty glass she'd never put down. "Thank you for coming," the commissioner said. "I won't take much of your time." He nodded, waiting. "We're closing the loop," the commissioner continued. "The contractor responsible has been charged. The city is releasing the report tonight. Full transparency." "Good," he said. "There's more," the commissioner added. He turned to Marissa. "You asked to speak." She swallowed and stepped forward. The atrium amplified small sounds, the catch in her breath, the soft scrape of her shoe. "I laughed at you," she said, voice tight. "I judged you because it was easy. Because I thought power looked like me." He watched her carefully. Apologies were actions. This was the first step. "I'm sorry," she went on. "And I'm changing where I work. What I work on. I can't undo that night. But I won't repeat it." He nodded once. "Then do better," he said. The same words as before, not unkind. She exhaled, relief and resolve mixing, and stepped back. The commissioner cleared his throat. "There's a public acknowledgement in the report," he said. "Your role, your expertise." He considered it, then shook his head. "Leave the lessons. Lose the name." The commissioner smiled, slow and genuine. "You're consistent. Someone has to be," he replied. They stood in companionable quiet for a moment, the atrium holding them. Finally, the commissioner straightened and extended his hand, not in command, but in respect. He took it. The handshake was brief, firm, done. When he turned to leave, staff who'd gathered nearby nodded as he passed. No applause, just recognition, the kind that settled and stayed. Outside, the air was crisp. He walked the long way to the bus stop, past the river where lights stitched gold into the water. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Durrani sending a photo of Lily asleep at the table, crayon still in hand. He smiled and quickened his pace. At home, Lily stirred as he came in. "You're late," she murmured. "I know," he said, kneeling. "I brought bread." She grinned and padded to the kitchen, tearing off a warm piece and handing it to him like a treaty. They ate together, crumbs on the counter, the city quiet beyond the window. "Did you fix the last thing?" she asked. "Almost," he said. "One more." She nodded. "Serious. You'll get it." Later, after she slept, he sat with the coin in his palm, turning it once, then tucking it back into his pocket. Tomorrow, the report would drop. People would argue. Power would posture. But the exits would open when they needed to. The doors would listen. The hum stayed low. Content. For now. He turned off the light and went to bed, knowing the final piece wasn't another fix. It was letting the city carry what it had learned, without him standing in front of it. That, he thought, was the truest kind of work. Morning broke clear, the kind that felt earned. He woke before the alarm and lay still, listening, not for danger, but for balance. Pipes settled. Traffic breathed. The city held. He rose quietly, made coffee and packed Lily's lunch with the same care he used on circuits and doors. At breakfast, Lily slid the bookmark into her book and tapped it twice. "Last day of practice," she said. "Tomorrow's the real assembly." "You'll do fine," he said. She studied him, then nodded, satisfied. Children trusted patterns. He walked her to school under a sky-rinsed blue. At the gate, she hugged him hard, then ran, ponytail bouncing. He watched until she disappeared inside, then turned toward the bus stop. The city moved around him, ordinary and immense, unaware of how close it always came to wobbling. At the hotel, the report had gone live. Emails arrived, measured, cautious, grateful. He read what mattered, ignored the rest, and started his rounds. The atrium shimmered with sunlight. Doors cycled clean. Screens showed green without lying. Staff moved with quiet confidence, eyes lifting to meet his, and then returning to the work. Near noon, the commissioner stopped by. No entourage, no rush. "We're rolling the training to schools next," he said. "Assemblies, drills." "Calm." "Good," he replied. "Teach listening." They stood together for a moment, watching a guard practice a hand signal with a new hire. It worked. No words needed. On the bus home, he bought a newspaper he wouldn't read and folded it neatly, a habit from another life. The headline debated accountability. The photo showed the atrium lights, not him. He smiled and looked out the window as the city slid past, stitched together by routes and routines that held because someone had asked the right questions early. At home, Lily burst through the door waving a paper crown. "We practiced exits," she announced. "No running." "Smart," he said. That evening they cooked together. She measured. He chopped. Steam rose and fogged the window. When the timer chimed, she jumped. He laughed, the sound surprising him with its ease. After dinner, they read. The dragon learned its name. The bridge held. She fell asleep mid-sentence, book open at the marked page. He covered her with the blanket and left the light low. Later, he stood by the window, the brass coin warm in his palm. He thought of the laughter that had started it all, the easy cruelty of it, and how quickly it had collapsed under pressure. He thought of the salute, not as triumph, but as a correction the city needed to see. Public exposure had taught a lesson without blood. Poetic justice had landed without cruelty. The work had spread. A message pinged from a guard at a different building. Ran the checklist. Caught a fault early. "Thanks." He typed back. "Good listening." Outside, the city hummed. Low, steady, patient. It would test again. It always did. But now more people knew how to hear it. More hands would reach for the right switches before panic reached for throats. He set the coin on the counter beside Lily's bookmark. 2 small objects, unremarkable, heavy with meaning. Then he turned off the light. "Subscribe, and don't miss our next story." Until a woman whispered, "Will you be my husband?" Trust me, you'll feel it. And tell me in the comments, what injustice should we tackle next? He went to bed with the city balanced for the night, knowing the quiet victories would keep adding up, one careful check at a time.